The Germans invade a small country and start terrorizing the people there. However, a mysterious witch comes flying in on a rifle and destroys the enemies one by one. Who is she? And why is she fighting against the Germans? Let's find out, as today, on Story Recaps, we will be covering the first 4 episodes of the series Izetta, the Last Witch. The movie begins with a little princess named Fine, running through the forest with her dog Dorothy. While she is running, she suddenly notices a couple of glowing bubbles floating in the sky. Amazed, she stops for some time and soon starts following the bubbles. After a while, she approaches a lake where another girl named Izetta is sitting on a piece of wood that is floating in the sky. Seeing this, Fine gets surprised and keeps on looking at her for some time. The scene then shifts to a neutral country, Elystadt, which is under attack by the German soldiers. The Princess of Elystadt, the same girl, Fine, is in a train where a few German soldiers arrive. They start searching for her vigorously by showing her photo to the passengers. Moments later, Fine and her personal guards get to know about this and decide to flee from the carriage. Unfortunately, when they run, the soldiers spot them and start pursuing them. Here we get to know that Fine was aiming to escape the country so that she could negotiate with the Allies and stop the war. While running away from the soldiers, Fine and her associates climb on the top of the train and start running backwards. Suddenly, the German soldiers spot them and start firing at them. During this, Fine's leg slips and she nearly falls from the train. Luckily, one of her associates manages to grab her hand. Despite this, he is unable to pull her and she is forced to enter a carriage through a window. Inside the carriage, she finds a small metal capsule, sealed from all sides. Fine tries to take a peek inside, but unfortunately, the Germans find her, and after shooting one of the associates, they point a gun at her. When it appears that all hope is lost, the train enters a tunnel. Using this as an opportunity, Fine jumps from the train along with her associates. Moments later, she talks to her injured associate, and the latter requests her to save their country at any cost. Following this, he passes away. The scene then shifts to a hotel where Fine takes a bath and dresses herself. Soon, she, along with her remaining associate, move on to visit the Britannian Lord Redford. They want to ask for his help to save their country from the ongoing German invasion. In the next scene, Fine arrives at Redford's mansion and pleads for his help to protect her country. Redford informs her that her country's borders have been invaded by the German soldiers and that they are attacking with full force. To her surprise, Redford refuses to assist her and reveals that he has joined hands with the Germans. Suddenly, a group of German soldiers arrive there, who kill Fine's remaining associate and interrupt the meeting to capture Fine. Following this, Fine can be seen inside a plane with the German soldiers and also the metal capsule that was shown previously in the train. The soldiers threaten to kill Princess Fine if she refuses to comply with them. However, Fine, being a patriotic person, is ready to sacrifice herself for the sake of her country. Surprisingly, whenever the soldiers try to threaten the princess, the bubbles start flowing towards the capsule kept inside the plane. Eventually, the plane loses its balance, and one of the German soldiers' gun slips from his hand. Fine picks up the gun but is unable to shoot at the soldiers. Rather, she gets shot by a senior German soldier, injuring her on her right hand. Despite being injured, Fine stands tall and declares to save her country from any evil. While confronting German soldiers, Fine spells her full name to be Fine Friederike von Elystadt and mentions that she will do everything she can to save her country. Hearing this, the metal capsule starts to get loose, and after some time, a white witch named Izetta emerges from inside. Fine remembers Izetta from her childhood, and by using her witch powers, Izetta destroys the plane. Before Fine falls to the ground and dies, Izetta rescues her and brings her to a safe place. The following scene begins with the German soldiers trying to capture the territory of Elystadt. They use 4 fighter planes to search for Princess Fine, but suddenly, some functions in their planes stop working, and one of the pilots declares a mayday situation. On the other hand, Izetta can be seen carrying Princess Fine on her flying rifle and doing her best to keep her safe. During this time, Izetta notices blood on Fine's hand because of the shot from the German soldiers. Here, Fine suggests that Izetta use her powers only when she requires them, and asks her to take her to a nearby fort of the Elystatteten army. Suddenly, the German fighter planes spot Izetta and Fine and start circling around them. When Fine mentions how the Germans are troubling them and are trying to invade their country, Izetta uses her flying rifle and starts shooting at the fighter planes, destroying them instantly. After taking down 3 of the fighter planes, Izetta and Fine manage to land inside a forest and search for help. Following this, Izetta carries the injured Fine on her back and starts walking around the forest, searching for the soldiers' fort. After some time, they come across a group of Elystattian soldiers who have returned after losing the Schweitzer fort to the German soldiers. Izetta presents herself and Fine in front of the soldiers and tells them that Fine is their princess. As soon as the soldiers hear this, they carry their princess to the nearest fort and provide her with first aid treatment. While the doctor is treating Fine, Izetta remembers about her encounter with Princess Fine during their childhood. The scene then flashes back to the past, where Fine is running into the forest and trying to follow the glowing bubbles. She suddenly reaches a place where she notices Izetta practicing her witch skills. While others get afraid of the witch and hesitate to befriend her, Fine walks closer to Izetta and tells her that she is impressed by her powers and wants to be her friend. Izetta is surprised to hear this, and the two spend quality time together and become friends. Back to the present. While Fine is still unconscious and lying on the floor, the doctor suggests Izetta to take rest and eat some food. However, Izetta refuses to do so, mentioning she is on a fast until her princess regains consciousness. In the next scene, Fine finally wakes up and is carried to another fort by the soldiers, with Izetta following them. They settle inside the fort, and there, Fine discusses with other soldiers about how to protect her country from the Germans. Fine then calls Izetta to her room and tells her that she must go away from there or else she will again be captured by the German soldiers. However, Izetta refuses to leave as she believes that Fine saved her life. Instead, she offers to help the soldiers fight against the Germans and defeat them. The scene then shifts to Königburg, the border of Elystadt, where the German soldiers launched their air force attack with a number of bomber planes. Furthermore, the German tanks can also be seen attacking the Elystattian army. The army at Königburg has no reply to the ongoing onslaught and can do nothing to stop the Germans. After a few minutes of bombardment, the whole area gets deserted, barring a few brave Elystattian soldiers who still want to fight for their country. On the other hand, Fine gets the news about the invasion. After a short speech, her soldiers get ready to counterattack the Germans and save their country. However, Fine stops her soldiers from counterattacking after she gets to know that Königburg's soldiers are trying their best to stop the Germans. While Fine and her soldiers are discussing the situation, another group of German fighter planes arrives at the scene and prepares for a more deadly attack. Seeing this, Izetta intervenes in the conversation and vows to save her country from them. She then climbs on a sword and sets off. She flies over the area of Königburg and, using her powers, sends multiple swords towards each German fighter's planes, destroying them one by one. Following this, Izetta collides with a tree and falls to the ground. Fortunately, some friendly soldiers find her and she asks them for a rifle to fly. She then attacks the German tanks with the swords and destroys each one of them. Eventually, Elystattian soldiers win the war against the German army. In the following scene, the Elystattian army sings their patriotic national anthem and they rejoice over the White Witch's return and the victory over the German troops. Later, right before Finney's ailing father, the Archduke, dies, he is told about his daughter's brave win over the German soldiers and about how Izetta helped them. Later that day, Fine arrives at Elystadt's mansion, present at the capital, Landsbruck. She is devastated to know about the death of her father and immediately hurries to his room. She entitles him as the greatest emperor of all time and hugs him for one last time. On the other hand, the German soldier's general, Grosskopf, visits the German Emperor Otto and reports to him about their loss against the army of Elystadt. When Otto asks how they lost, Grosskopf reveals that a witch who flew on a rifle attacked the German army using her special powers and defeated them. Hearing this, Otto gets angry and dismisses Grosskopf from the post of the general and assigns him as a prison head. The next morning, Izetta wakes up and is surprised to find herself sleeping inside the Archduke's castle. As soon as she wakes up, a maid, Lot, approaches at her service, and she is also greeted by one of Fine's bodyguards, Lady Bianca. Lot suggests Izetta freshen up before visiting the princess. She then takes Izetta to the bathroom and gives her a bath. Unfortunately, while she's doing so, a statue falls and injures Izetta slightly. After knowing of this, Fine becomes worried and orders Bianca to take good care of her. In the following scene, Izetta is summoned by Finney before her cabinet and asks about from where she got the powers and how she was able to defeat the German troops. Izetta discloses that a witch's power is derived from ley lines that run through the soil. However, in areas like Landsbruck, there are little to no ley lines. As a result, she cannot use her powers in Landsbrook. Everyone in the cabinet is shocked to hear this, but they eventually decide to keep it a secret from the rest of the world and present Izetta as an invincible white witch who will destroy everyone trying to harm Elystadt. The cabinet also makes the decision to reveal about Izetta to reporter Elvira Friedman, who has been recruited to publicize Izetta as the fabled Elystadt White Witch for Finay's approaching coronation. During her next meeting with Fine, Izetta recollects her grandma, telling her that a neighboring deserted castle is where the witch's secret is hidden. Following this, Bianca assists Izetta to explore the nearby abandoned castle, which is dark and scary. They start investigating the castle and find a room containing a map of the ley lines. Inside the castle, Izetta recollects her memory and remembers about how Fine risked her life and saved her from the furious superstitious villagers who were about to kill her, accusing her of putting their houses on fire. Back to the present, when Izetta and Bianca are returning to the castle, Izetta tells Bianca that she is willing to do her best to help Fine stop the ongoing war and maintain peace all over the country. In the last scene, it's the day of Finay's coronation. There, Fine meets with Izetta, who urges her to strive toward bringing peace to not just Elystadt, but also the entire globe, and also assures her that she will always stand by her side.